I was hoping we'd have tequila at this gig. But instead we have pets. I have a lot of pets. I've had a lot of different kinds of pets. I've got two dogs now and a cat, which is really my wife's cat, if I'm going to be totally honest about it. And we used to have, at one point, fish, of course. We had a lizard, had a snake, had an African pygmy hedgehog for a while, which was an interesting pet to have. So I've kind of hit for the cycle on the pets. I want to tell you a couple stories about that in a little bit. I am so delighted to be here because although I am not a pet blogger, I certainly am a blogger. 9 years ago, I started a company, Convince and Convert, and I thought, you know what I should do? I should maybe have a blog so that I can tell people what I know about digital marketing. And so I wrote a blog post, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And I wrote 4 blog posts a week, and nobody on the planet read those blog posts. Not even my mom. Seriously, she's like, oh, you have a blog? No idea. So then my mom started to read the blog, and so I figured I had one reader. And then from there, it sort of decided to kind of picked up. And here I am 9 years later with the great privilege of addressing each of you here in the amazing BlogPaws community. I was in the cat lounge earlier, saw some fantastic new cat products, learned more than I knew about cat astrology for sure. Went to the small dog park and woke up all the dogs. Apologies. But I want to congratulate you as I start off, because the fact that you are here means that you are quite literally a survivor. There are a shit ton of people writing blogs about pets, as you know. And you're here, and they're not here. So you actually have already survived what is one of the greatest competitive challenges in the world, which is the internet. Right? There are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of websites from people who have a lot of talent giving advice, but yet you are here. But that competition is not over. That challenge never ends. Because the one thing that's true about the internet is that it fragments attention like no other medium. It fragments attention in a way that isn't true in print or radio or TV or outdoor or direct mail or anything else. Jingle, haiku, doesn't matter. Smoke signal. Online attention is massively fragmented. And I want to show you what I mean. I pulled out an excerpt of my actual Facebook feed, okay? This is real. I didn't fake this for BlogPaws. This is my actual Facebook feed, okay? You ready? First thing I saw was this post from my friend Dave Thomas. Dave was at one point the head of social media for Salesforce.com. You guys may have heard that brand. Here, Dave is talking about the fact that his son Conrad made a windmill at Lego camp. Aww. Aww. Right, it's cute. It's the kind of thing you see on Facebook. Then, next I see this post from my friends at the Upland Brewing Company. Upland is the craft brewer in my current hometown of Bloomington, Indiana. Go Hoosiers. Woo. Thank you. So Upland apparently decided to go skydiving for a company outing. Now, I'm not in HR, okay? But it seems to me that if you own a brewery and you need a team-building exercise, skydiving should never be that exercise. It's a terrible idea. I'm almost positive, though, that everybody landed safely. And how I know that is that they only posted the one photo, right? There would definitely been a follow-up in any other circumstance. Then I see something from my wife complaining about something. And then, because this is real Facebook. And then I see somebody trying to sell me some LinkedIn training, okay? So let's recap. My Facebook looks something like this. It's something from a friend, and then something from a company, and then something from a family member, and then something from a company, right? Guess what? Your Facebook looks exactly the same. So does the Facebook of every reader fan, sponsor you have or will have. Twitter works the same way. Instagram works the same way. Email works the same way. It's a combination of personal relationships and business-oriented relationships. But that is only true online. Right? Dave Thomas is not complaining on the radio. My wife's not complaining on the radio. Dave's not talking about his windmill kid, in a magazine. But online, it's all smooshed together. Which means that online, where we're all trying to play, every person in this room is competing for attention against everything. It's not just about other people talking about pets. The Kardashians are competition. The president is competition. LeBron James is competition. Online, everything is competition, and that is extraordinarily difficult. It's hard to grow a following in that environment, yes? So, what do we do about that? When 50% of all content gets 8 social shares or fewer. Half of all the content we make falls on deaf ears. So, in some cases, the solution is to try to push harder, to shout louder, to try and break through by being more specific and pointed. And here's how that feels to your audience. When you decide to go down this path and say, I'm having trouble getting as much attention as I think I deserve, or trying to grow my following, so what I'm going to do is try and push harder and shout louder, here's how that feels.
Howdy, y'all. This here's Mike. Down at Mike's Golf Shop, where we buy golf. That's right. We buy golf clubs. Mike's Golf Shop. Come on over here. We buy golf clubs. Over at Mike's Golf Shop. Come on down here. We buy golf clubs. That's right. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs.
So, I mean, A for call to action, right? I mean, nailed it. Lower grade for subtlety. Right? That's how it feels when we come on too strong. But it's hard, right? Because it's the natural reaction. The natural reaction when you feel like you need to grow is to push harder. But it often has the opposite effect, right? Because it comes off like that. The pride of Tennessee right there, Mike, we buy golf clubs. Here's the truth. Everybody in this room, every single person in this room, including myself, tells themselves the exact same lie. And the lie that we tell ourselves is that our audience is just too busy. The world's crazy now, and they're just too busy. They're too busy to read the blog. They're too busy to listen to the podcast. They're too busy to check it out on Instagram. They're too busy to watch the video. And it's absolutely not true. None of that is true. It's not about being busy. And if somebody tells you that they're too busy to consume your content, that's just code. They're just trying to let you down easy. When somebody says they're too busy, what they really mean, but will not say specifically, is that what you are giving them is not relevant enough. Relevancy is the killer app. And the reason I know this to be true is that if you give somebody the content that they want in the format they prefer, at the time that they need it, they will consume it. They will find the time to consume it. So what this means is that relevancy magically creates time and attention. So if you want to grow your audience, or maybe you feel like you've plateaued and you need to grow your audience to the next level, the way to do that is not to shout louder. It's to be more relevant. Relevancy and this sort of fight for relevancy is the Hunger Games of personal branding. Because what you really want to do is be somebody's favorite blog in the world. If you're not somebody's favorite blog on this entire planet, I can tell you firsthand, you're not yet relevant and specific enough. So, what is the secret weapon of personal branding and growing a community for yourselves? I believe it's to be hyper useful, to be incredibly relevant by being massively useful to your audience. Being useful creates relevancy. Relevancy creates attention, and attention creates cash. That's the formula for all of us. For all of us, that's the formula. I call this concept of being massively useful utility. It's information so useful that people can't believe it's free. It's so valuable and worthwhile to your audience that they are shocked that you would give it away for nothing. That's the test. That's the test of whether or not you are consistently being useful enough. If you sell something, you can create a customer today. But if you help someone, you can create a customer for life. And the same is true for a reader or a fan or a follower or a subscriber. And that's what we're all trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to create audience relationships for life. For life. You can't really succeed in this business by churning audience. Nobody is that good at SEO. Nobody is that good at paid social. Nobody has that kind of money to constantly have to cycle through new readers every week, every month, every quarter. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. You've got to get people and keep those people. And the way you keep them is by being massively helpful. Massively helpful. So what we're trying to do here is develop relationships with our audience that is more like the relationships we have in this community, the relationships that we have amongst our friends. It's friend of mine awareness. And when you do that, when you build friend-style relationships with your community, that then creates top-of-mind awareness. How can you be a friend to your community? Sometimes you can do this even as a company. Here's an example of a utility, something that is so useful you can't believe it's free. It's from Pedigree Dog Food in New Zealand. Watch this.
Dogs follow their noses, and sometimes that can lead them astray. Introducing Pedigree Found, the real-time lost dog app. For the first time ever, you can register your dog so that if he or she goes missing, you can send out an instant online alert to everyone in the area via Google's digital ad network for free. With the lost dog alert moving faster than your dog, you should be reunited with your best friend in next to no time. So before your dog gets lost, download Pedigree Found from your app store now.
How terrific is that? What an amazing utility. You lose your dog, you press a button on your phone, you've already uploaded a picture, Google and Pedigree put ads all over Auckland, New Zealand. Your dog is lost, but they do it only in a concentric circle radius of where your dog was lost. Number one, that's amazing targeting capabilities of digital marketing. But number two, I mean, you can have essentially virtual flyers for your lost dog out on the internet in 10 seconds. In 10 seconds. Doesn't cost anything to use that. It's brought to you by the people at Pedigree. That is creating friend-style relationships with a utility. Next time you are thinking about making a food change, if you happen to be in that circumstance and Pedigree helped you get your dog back, yeah, you're going to give them a second look, I would say, right? So there's 4 dimensions of utility I want to talk about this morning, 4 different pieces of this story that I'd like to cover. The first one is the importance of solving problems for your audience. Solving problems for your readers. One of my favorite examples of focusing on a specific problem and really succeeding with it is from my friend Joe. Joe Manusa is a realtor in Tallahassee, Florida. And unlike most realtors, Joe has a very specific segment. He only represents sellers. If you want to buy a house he doesn't do that. He's not your guy. He also only represents sellers with homes between $200,000 and $400,000. If you got a big fancy house, not your guy either. Now, some of you may know that if you have a home between $200,000 and $400,000, chances are you may not have a lot of upside equity in that home. Depends on where you bought it in the market, of course. But in general, you may not have a ton of upside equity. So what's very common in that circumstance, as you may know, is that people think, well, I could work with a realtor to sell this home, or I could try to sell it myself on a for sale by owner, and I could keep the 6% commission. Yeah? Well, Joe understands this, but he does it totally differently. 99.5% of all realtors have a website that tries to convince you that they know what you don't know. The website says, only realtors have the information that you need to sell your home. Only realtors have access to the data. Only realtors have the market experience. They try to convince you that they have secret sauce or a crystal ball or a secret ball or crystal sauce, one of those things. Joe goes the other way. He sat down and he wrote a 65-page PDF ebook called How to Sell a Home on Your Own. Puts it all over his website, free download, and it is quite literally step by step exactly how to sell a home on your own. And so I interviewed him. I said, Joe, I don't understand how you created a book, gave it away for free, that tells people how to not hire you. And he said, Jay, what you don't understand is that people get to about page 20 and they say, Jesus, it's hard to sell a house on your own. I don't have that kind of time. It is his number one source of new customers. Number one source. Because his name and email address and phone number on every page. And if you're in that circumstance, you're thinking, should I use a realtor or should I sell it myself? And he totally helped you and you realize, now I can't do it. Who are you going to call? Of course you're going to call him. It's a utility. It's so useful you can't believe that it's free. And in this case, he focuses on answering a very specific problem. How do I sell a home on my own? See, we talked about relevancy, and specificity creates relevancy. One of the challenges for all bloggers is that after you've been doing it for a while, you feel like, oh, I've already covered that topic. Oh, I've already covered that one. And so you start to go broader in your editorial focus. And when you do that, you leak specificity, right? By definition, you become topically broader. But when you do that, when you become topically broader, you're not as relevant because you're not as specific. So the best blogs and the best utilities are those that are narrower. And I know that sounds crazy for me to say, to grow your audience, go narrow, not broad, but I'm telling you, it's true. One of my former clients is Columbia Sportswear. Some of you may know that brand, right? They make outdoor gear and jackets and hats and stuff like that. So they have a mobile application called What Not to Do in the Great Outdoors, spelled K-N-O-T. And it tells you exactly how to tie knots. Right on your phone, animated knot demos. So there's a couple things amazing about that. One, totally answers a problem. How do I tie this knot? I'm being chased by a bear. And the other thing that's amazing about that is that Columbia Sportswear doesn't sell rope. They're not in the rope business. They're not in the knots business. But they understand that by creating this utility, they can answer a problem that is relevant to their audience, right? It's adjacency relevance. They just committed to it. They answered that problem, massively successful. Your goal is to be somebody's favorite pet personality in the world, as I mentioned. That is the objective, to be somebody's favorite. If they could only read one blog ever, it's yours. That's what you're shooting for. And the only way that happens is to be specific. It's dog or nothing. Here, I think. Right there. Stand up. So what? Congratulations. Yay. Let's hear it. Yes. Okay, so what I love about your whole thing is that it's all about the breed, right? It's all about Great Pyrenees. If you have a poodle, you're like, why am I reading this blog? This doesn't make any sense to me, right? You have the courage to create a blog that's about a particular type of dog. And most people don't. Really, really well done. Keep that up. I really like it. I would never have a dog that big, but I love the blog. This is my other dog. Some of you saw the video that I created as a promotional video for BlogPaws when I talked about my little dog, Marigold. Marigold is a puppy. She's about a year old, and I wanted to bring her. I really did. And thank you for your votes, for those of you who voted. But I had to go to another event before this one, and it was going to get way crazy to do that. So Mr. Cheeto is my other dog. He's 14, and he's 100% blind and 100% deaf. And also has got a little of the sort of doggy Alzheimer's sort of situation, not real quick on the uptake at this point. He is adorable and fantastic, but if I'm looking to read a pet blog at this point, I'm looking for information about senior care, end-of-life options, what do you do when your dog is blind, those kind of things, right? Specificity creates relevancy. For me, right now, that's the relevancy that I'm looking for. Make sense? Relationships, in many cases, are built with information first and then people second. That's the way the world works now. I'm not sure it's an improvement, but that's the news. I'm just reporting the news. And it's the exact opposite of how business and the world worked for the entirety of the world, from like cavemen until 2009. It was literally people first, right? You'd walk into a store, right? Literally, you'd walk into a store and say, what do you have in this store? What do you guys sell here? Now, of course, by the time you walk in the store, you probably know all the things they have, what they're available, what colors they have, what sizes they have. You're just there to pick it out, which, of course, is one of the challenges right now with retail. So most of the relationships that you have with your audience, and even with people in this room, will start online, and then if you're lucky, will foster offline. But the information side of it is incredibly important. So what I'm telling you is that the better you teach, the stronger your personal brand becomes. You're not trying to be the best blogger or the best pet personality. Your objective is to be the best teacher about some specific topics that are hyper-relevant to a subset of pet owners. Does that make sense? The second dimension of utility I want to cover is to be consistent. And many of you are. In fact, most of you are. But I think it bears repeating because I got to tell you, I have lived this challenge. When you've written a lot, it's hard to keep writing a lot. Right? You're like, man, there's a lot of things I could be doing right now, as opposed to writing my 1400th blog post. But you've got to stay at it. Success is based on, and this is what happens, right? We just sort of make stuff. Let's make some content today. People who make content professionally do not create content randomly. Sports Illustrated doesn't say, you know what, it's kind of a slow week in sports, let's just not make one. I'm going to sit this week out. Right? If you turn on NBC at 7:30 on a Thursday, there's always a show, even if it sucks. There's still a show. Always a show. It's never just like test pattern. Nah, we just decided to blow it off. And conversely, there's always one show. If you turn on NBC at 7:30, there's only one show at a time. It's not 15 shows. Right? It's consistency. Consistency. Personal branding success that we're all trying to achieve here is built on perspiration, not inspiration. This concept that I hear a lot, especially from newer and intermediate bloggers, is I like to create content when I feel like I'm inspired. I like to create content when I feel I've got something to say. And I understand that, definitely. Psychologically, I really understand that motivation, but that is not a way to make huge gains in this industry. You've got to continue to execute. just because it's Monday or Wednesday or Friday or whatever your publishing schedule is. You've got to make stuff on schedule, not just when you're feeling motivated. This is a chart that shows two things. Weekly traffic for my blog is the blue line, and the green line is number of posts published per month. So we used to do 3 blog posts a week, 12 a month, and then we went to 10 a week, 40 a month, over a period of 7 years. And you can see the impact on traffic, right? However, I am not telling you that the solution is to just make more stuff, because it's not. The solution is to be consistent and make more stuff if quality remains constant. Once quality starts to go down, more is not more. More becomes less. Because if the quality is not high, it's not relevant, and then attention fades away. So you want to publish as much as you can at a consistent level of quality. Okay? I learned the hard way many, many years ago that more is not always more. When I was in college, I was a freshman at the University of Arizona in 1987. And my dorm room was almost precisely, I stepped it off earlier, the size of this stage. My roommate and I inhabited a space the size of this stage. You walk in, doors right here by the stairs, and then we'd have a closet on here, another closet here, beds on each side here in the middle, a bed here, and a bed here, and then a desk right here, and a desk right here, and a little mini fridge right here. That was the whole show, baby. I felt like that was pretty tight quarters. And then, a week later, my college roommate decided that it would be a good idea to have a ferret in our dorm room. Now, I know there's a couple ferrets here. I know Snotface is here. There's a few other ferrets. I like ferrets, generally speaking. But I think it's fair to say, even here with some members of the ferret community, that the ferret is an odoriferous animal, I think is safe to say. The ferret has a special funk, and that funk is magnified when it is in a space this size, and only a space this size. Also, this was, of course, before the internet, and so we didn't really know anything about ferrets at all. And so my roommate felt like it would be a good idea to raise this ferret free range. So we had no cage for this ferret. And it turns out, and maybe some of the ferret people here know this, but I certainly didn't at that tender age of 17, that when you don't have a cage for the ferret decides to make its own nest. And in our case, the ferret tore open each of our mattresses and stole all of our socks and lived in our mattresses, in the box springs. Also, when they don't have a ferret, or when they don't have a cage, ferrets do a really endearing thing where they back up to the corner, and that's where they poop. So we had 4 corners full of ferret poop, and ferret living in each of our mattresses in our dorm room. And then our friend from high school, Brandon Young, very smart guy. He's currently a master architect, ironically. But at the time, he was a bit of a screw-up, so much so that he was one of the very, very last people to apply for his dorm when we were going to college. And because he was at the end of the line, he got assigned to the worst dormitory, not just at our college, probably in the U.S. They've since knocked it down because it was like Guantanamo, right? It was that bad. It was cement, no windows, cement room, 8 steel bunks. 8 steel bunks, cement room. That was his dorm. It was underneath the football stadium. Swear to God. Totally true. So he was there for a week, and he was like, this is unspeakably bad. is it okay if I move in with you guys? And what are you going to say? Friend from high school, bad dorm, we're sympathetic. So now, just to make sure we're clear on the math here, we've got my roommate and me and the ferret whose name was Bunny Whaler. My roommate was a big Bob Marley and the Wailers fan, so that was the name of the ferret. So me, my roommate Brian, Bunny Whaler, and our high school friend Brandon sleeping on the floor right here in the middle of the two bunks. So then 2 more weeks goes by, and we're trying to get accustomed to this situation. Brandon not only was late applying for the dorm, he also didn't really go to class. And he also didn't really like to shower. And he was sort of like too smart for his own good, so he hung out at the hippie coffee house off campus. And while he was at the hippie coffee house, he met an unemployed hobo poet named Jack. And without checking with Brian or I, he decided to invite Jack to live with us as well. So now, again, to make sure we're clear on the math, we have Brian, me, free-range Bunny Whaler ferret, high school roommate, and a 45-year-old unemployed hobo poet in a room the size of this stage. A week later, I asked my now wife out on the first date. And because I was really not that wise about the ways of women, and I think because I'd been surrounded by this for more than a month, I thought it'd be a great idea for a first date to have her come over to our dorm. So we're the last dorm on the floor. She comes over the dorm hallway. She comes over here. Our door is at the very end of the stage. She opens the door to the hall, goes, "Whew, whew, no way." That was it. Didn't come back for the whole rest of the semester. That's how bad our room smelled. The entirety of the floor was impacted. And yet, my powers of persuasion are so well tuned that we're still married to this day 25 years later. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. More is not always more. For me, the breaking point was the hobo, okay? For your audience, it might be the 4th blog post of the week. But every audience has a breaking point. Your responsibility is to figure out where it is to get up to that line and then pull back. You want to create as much content as you can as long as quality stays consistent, okay? All right, I got to kind of put that memory out of my mind here before I go to the next section. Post-traumatic. I mentioned this this morning to the Pathfinders. One of the things I think is really important to understand today in the content industry is to think like a TV station and to create shows. Stop random acts of content. Wherever possible, have a consistent theme that you execute in the same way, and you do it on the same day or in the same week and in the same place all the time. Because it does 2 things. 1, it allows people to have an expectation for what your content's going to be like, right? You can tune into it. And 2, it's much better for sponsors, which I'll talk about before I leave. So you want to create consistent shows. At least 1, and ideally 2. And it has to be a show that you can create episodes of for at least a year. So it's got to have enough runway, right? Enough topics, enough stuff that you can execute on it for a year. And that doesn't mean you got to do it every day. It could be 1 a month for a year. It could be 1 a week for a year. You can figure that part out. But it has to be something that you can execute. It is just shtick. It is your thing, right? It is your Walking Dead. Lowe's has a terrific show. Lowe's Home Improvement has a show. It's called Fixin' 6. It's called Fixin' 6 because it originally started on Vine, if you remember Vine, the 6-second video loops. This is a show that helps people with handy tips around the home. Handy tips, very utility, very useful. For example, take a look at this. Lost your watering can? Find a plastic bottle. Ta-da! Pretty cool, right? What's weird about that is Lowe's sells watering cans. It's pretty bold, right? It's a show. They execute on it one a week. Positively woof. Here? Somewhere? All right, stand up. Let's see it. Where are you? Well done, well done. Okay, so you may not have known this, but you have a show, right? You have a show. I spent a bunch of time on your blog. Dog Rescue Stories, which you execute periodically. That is a show, right? It is a set piece. It is a content execution, and you go back to it again and again and again, right? That is an example of a show. Okay, now, when I say show, I don't necessarily mean that it's video. I'm using show as a metaphor, of course, but it's a content execution that is consistent. The theme is consistent, the format is consistent, the audience is consistent, the call to action is consistent, the time of day is consistent, the day of week is consistent, the week of month is consistent, okay? Shows. Third piece, atomize your awesome. Atomize your awesome. I mentioned that Lowe's has the Fix in 6 videos. I also mentioned that these started on Vine. But Lowe's realizes that not everybody uses Vine. And in fact, now nobody uses Vine. So they realize that if they've got a good idea, and they should atomize it. Put it in lots of different places, not just one place. So not only did Fix in 6 live on Vine, but they also put it on Pinterest. And they also put it on Tumblr. And they also put it on YouTube. All that is the 6-second Vine video looped twice with a little bit of opening music on it and a little bit of ending music on it. That's it. Same exact content, they just put it into ScreenFlow or something like that, did a little bit of editing, boom, now it's a whole YouTube program. The one place where Fix in 6 doesn't live, the one place you can't get it, is on the Lowe's website. They have it everywhere but their website, which I find pretty interesting. Part of the reason why that's true is that Lowe's understands that since 2010, American consumers visit 39% fewer websites per month. We visit 39% fewer websites per month than we did in 2010, despite the fact that there are, of course, way more websites than there were in 2010. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. Some of it's mobile, some of it's Facebook. There's a lot of reasons for this, but the reality is, and I'm telling you this as somebody who basically built a whole business based on a blog, you've got to be in other places, right? It can't just be your own .com. One of the ways that you can succeed with that is with video. We saw the incredible video just before I came up here. I've seen a lot of videos during this session. My friends at Vidyard put out this research just a month ago. Daily time spent reading in America, 25 minutes a day. Daily time spent watching online video, that's not TV, that's online video, 72 minutes a day. As an author, that's not particularly good news at all, is it? I'm starting to work on a new book now, and I'm thinking maybe this book is just a collection of videos. I mean, really? Maybe it's just a YouTube channel that I call it a book. I've got 2 kids at home, 18 and 16, and unless there's a grade associated, they don't read, and they're smart kids. Just not their thing. They're like, why would I read? My son and I are both sports fans, and it happens quite common that we'll be at breakfast, and he'll have his phone out, and I'll have my phone out, and instead of talking like a real family, we're both on the internet, and he'll be looking at an article on ESPN, and I'll be looking at the exact same article, but I'll be reading it and he'll be watching video, because every article on ESPN almost has text and a video on top of it. And I'm like, why would I watch the video? I could just read this. And he's like, why would I read this? I could just watch the video. So think about where this leads for all of us. So we have to atomize our awesome. We have to be in the places that our audience is spending time. And increasingly, those places are not a blog or a website. So if you have a show like Lowe's or like my show, Jay Today, which is a twice-weekly video program, jtoday.tv, if you want to subscribe. That's 3 minutes, 3-minute episodes. Keep it short. Tips on just like what we're talking about here: social media, digital marketing, customer service, life, etc. So the show is on YouTube, but the show is also on iTunes as a video podcast, and the show is on iTunes as an audio podcast, and the show is on Facebook, and the show is on the business's Facebook page, my company Facebook, and the show gets transcribed and put on our blog, and the show gets rewritten slightly and put on Medium as a blog post, and the show gets rewritten slightly and gets put on LinkedIn as a blog post there. And all of that sort of repackaging takes like an hour. It's not a ton of work to repurpose things for different places and atomize it in all the different venues that your audience might possibly be spending time. I also then put it on our email newsletter. So one 3-minute video becomes 8 or 9 different pieces of content in my organization with just a little bit of time to repackage it. Something to think about, I think, for all of us here. How can we create more content with each execution by atomizing it? And the thing about podcasts, man, it's big. More Americans listen to podcasts each month than are Catholic. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. The nice thing about podcasts is it's the only multitaskable content format. Right? You can listen to a podcast and drive your car. You can listen to a podcast and blow snow. You can listen to a podcast and run on the treadmill. You should not read blog posts while running on a treadmill. Right? You should not watch videos while driving your car. But podcasts are the ultimate multitaskable content format, which is why they have a real place and I think a larger future. Which is why I'm delighted that some folks are on Pet Life Radio and are started getting into this podcasting idea already. Couldn't agree more. I think more folks should explore that opportunity as well. In our company, we use a rule called the 1-to-8 rule. The 1-to-8 rule says that every time you have a big piece of content, a big story you're trying to tell, something that's pretty awesome, you atomize it in 8 different places. The same way we do with Jay Today, the same way Lowe's does with Fix and Six. And you start to train yourself to think that way, to think 1-to-8, 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 and you will be amazed at how many more places you can interact with your audience when you start to live that 1-to-8 principle as you're thinking through what you're making. The fourth thing I want to talk to you about is how to get paid. How to get paid. Okay, Chloe told me that some people here are less than enthusiastic, perhaps, or a little bit bashful about getting sponsors and trying to generate revenue, and that some people feel a little bit like, oh, I just love my pets, and that's not really what I'm doing this for. I'm not trying to get paid. I just love pets. I get it. God bless you. But if you're focused on helping people, which is all the things I'm talking about today, it's okay to get paid. As my good friend Rory Vaden always says, there's no need to be nervous when your heart is on service. And if there's one thing I've learned in my brief time in this community is that your heart is definitely on service. Nobody's going to accuse the BlogPaws community of selling out to the man. I'm pretty sure on that. I mean, you got cats on leashes. I mean, it's just that's proof positive right there. So it's okay to get paid, right? Because here's how you got to look at it. If I get paid, I can create more content that helps my audience. If I get paid, I can do more for them. It's not more for you, it's more for them. And that's true, isn't it? Isn't that true? If you were making more money from sponsors, wouldn't everybody in this room do more stuff? Wouldn't you do more videos? Wouldn't you do more podcasts? Wouldn't you start another blog? Wouldn't you travel more? Wouldn't you do more stuff for your audience if you had the money to do so? Yeah, you wouldn't just buy Cuban cigars and smoke them on the back porch like Scrooge McDuck. You would actually do more for your audience because your heart is in it. You wouldn't be here at all if your heart wasn't in it, right? So, what you're trying to do on the business side is really simple. Your role is to connect companies to their future customers. You're a conduit. You're a slide, right? You're just connecting companies to their future customers. You're the middle. You're the meat in the sandwich. That's what you're trying to accomplish on the business side. So, I don't do much on affiliate marketing. I never have. It's not really my thing. I've just never really been down that road. So my piece of this game is really on the sponsored content side. I can help you a lot with that. On affiliates and doing more things, product and taking commissions and all that, there's way, way better people here at BlogPaws than me on that. But in terms of sponsors, I can help you. 5 places to find sponsors. 1, every company that exhibits at any event you attend. They've all left, unfortunately. But if they were still here, I'm sure there's a list of them somewhere. That would be target number 1 for me. Number 2, any company that has anybody from their marketing department on your email list. Number 3, any marketer or business owner or decision maker that interacts with you routinely on your blog or in social. You got somebody that tends to comment on your Instagram who actually is in business. Doesn't even have to be a pet business. Doesn't matter. That's a potential sponsor. 4, any marketer or business owner who's looking at your LinkedIn profile. You know that, right? That you can go to LinkedIn and see all the people who have looked at your LinkedIn profile? That's pretty useful to see who's snooping on you. It may be an ex-boyfriend, but it may be a potential sponsor. And if you're really lucky, it's the same person. Last one is any company that appears as a guest on your podcast. And this is one of the things I like so much about podcasting. I started my show, Social Pros, 6 years ago. I've been doing it 6 years, 268 episodes of Social Pros. Was named the #1 marketing podcast in the world last year. It's not a huge show, but it's decent. We do 50, 60,000 downloads a month, which is a pretty big podcast for a specific topic. We started it with no listeners, of course, and we started it with a very simple premise, which was, what if we had a way to interview our future clients? Because if you're in the consulting business, as I am, it's a little weird to just email somebody from a big company and say, hey, can I be your social media consultant? It's a little easier to say, hey, I've got an awesome podcast. Would you like to be a guest? And now you have a relationship, which could go somewhere over time. That's why we started it. And it absolutely works. One of the reasons to have an interview-based show, whether it's actually a podcast or even a blog series or anything else, is that it allows you to build relationships with potential sponsors in a way that doesn't feel like a sales pitch, because it's not a sales pitch, right? You're taking a long-term approach to sponsorship development, okay? When you're talking about sponsors, scarcity and exclusivity are important, even if it's not accurate. What I mean by that is you have to have shows, and then you have to have sponsor holes. It can't just be, give me some money and I'm going to do some stuff. But you have to have a package, and you have to have a limited number of packages. And you can't take everybody. You have to say, look, I'm going to have one dog food sponsor, and I'm going to have one dog toy sponsor, and I'm going to have one dog sort of equipment or carriers or something else sponsor, and that's it. Right? You want to give people exclusivity in the category so that they feel like they have a special relationship with you. So you want to artificially constrain the number of sponsors that you'll work with and the number of sponsorship opportunities that you offer. Okay? And even if you don't have any sponsors, it doesn't matter. You say, we only have 3. How many do you have now? None, but we're only going to have 3. Because then they realize that you're going to go the extra mile for a fewer number of sponsors instead of just sort of half relationship with everybody. So, you want to also, as much as possible, look and act like a media company. I want to remind you that 9 years ago, I started a blog in my guest room that my mom wouldn't even read. And now we have a full media kit of sponsorship opportunities at Convince and Convert, which includes blog sponsorships, email sponsorships, podcast sponsorships, webinar sponsorships, video sponsorships. And every one of them has a defined list of ingredients that you get, a price, a testimonial, why a sponsor would want to do it, how that sponsor benefits. I'm just a dude, right? But we built a structure that looks and feels like a media company. And if you're going to work with corporations, even small companies, and there's a lot of small companies in the pet industry, they still want to have confidence that you're treating this like a business. And I know some of you don't want to treat it like a business. I understand that. But you got to hold your nose at some level and give them what they're looking for. So if you go to jbaer.com/blogpaws, there's two things in there. It's a Dropbox. There's 2 PDFs in that Dropbox. They're pretty large, okay? So I just want to tell you, I probably don't want to download on your phone. These slides are in that Dropbox. And our entire 2017 media kit with pricing. Exactly what we charge, for what, under what circumstances, how we do it, the whole thing, okay? So take as much as you want. Hopefully it will help you create some of your own resources for sponsor development. You're welcome. So this is our actual sponsorship development curve since we started sponsorships in 2010. 2010, we did a grand total of $0, which was what we'd call a lean year. And then we started to get serious about it. Like, okay, look, we're going to do this. We're going to try and build the things I just told you. We're going to build packages. We're going to have shows. We're going to look and act like a media company. We're going to proactively go out and get sponsors. We're going to start the podcast. We're going to do all these things. And this is the actual revenue growth every single year. These are real numbers. And I'm not saying this to brag at all. But what I'm telling you is 2 things. One, it's totally possible. Because I'm going to tell you one thing that you need to always remember. People love pets way more than they love digital marketers in general, okay? So you already have a good thing going, which is a topic that people desperately care about, okay? So you have a huge advantage over me to begin with. So A, if I can do it, you can totally do it. And B, it takes a while, okay? Years and years and years. That's why you got to get started now. If you haven't really gone down this road, the time to start is now. There's a great saying that says, what's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. And that's how this works. Okay, so when you get back from BlogPaws, after the awards, and you're sitting down and saying, man, I learned a lot of things, the one thing I want you to remember is to create content that is massively useful, to be relevant, and to get started on taking your sponsorship game to the next level. It's all about being useful. It's all about being useful over the long haul. And I learned a little trick a few years ago about how to keep that in your head, how to keep being useful in your head when you're surrounded by a maelstrom of other stuff. Right? We're just besieged by information and we're just besieged by information and opportunity, and just the world is crazy. I don't think I'm speaking out of school there, right? It's just exhausting to be alive right now, I think, in some ways. And so here's how I do it. And I'll leave you with this, and hopefully you'll appreciate this. Every morning, the first thing you do before you brush your teeth, before you get out of bed, before you even check your phone, just close your eyes and lie there for a second and ask yourself one question every morning, the very first thing. Just ask yourself, how can I help? start that tomorrow. I appreciate you having me here. Thanks.
Who's motivated?
Thank you.
And as you know, we always have our donations.
Thank you.
And Jay donated to Pets Alive, which is in his hometown.
It is, yep.
So,
thank you. I really appreciate that. They're going to love that a lot. Thank you. Thanks so much. Get in here.
I'm being all.
You know what they
Sweet.
love on the airlines? When you come in with a big check like this. They love that. They just love it. It's their favorite. This and guitars and Cats on a Leash. Those are their favorites.
Thank you. All right, everyone. There's a few things left. If you have one-on-ones, if you have editor appointments, that's happening in the media lounge. And Kate sent me a text while I was in here to say that if you filled out a giveaway form, it means you won something, so just go see what it was. She's not actually trying to tweet everybody, because apparently there's like hundreds of people, and that's a lot of tweets. So, go see Kate. Enjoy your afternoon. I cannot wait to see the fabulousness that's going to hit the red carpet at 5 o'clock. I will see you all there. Thank you.